All right, so today we're going to dive into a pretty critical analysis of communism. We'll be sticking to the source material to really unpack the powerful arguments it puts forward. And it all kicks off with one single powerful number: 100 million. That's it. That's the number our source material puts right at the center of its entire argument. Now, where does this massive figure come from? Well, the source points to a 1997 book called The Black Book of Communism. It alleges this is the minimum number of deaths under communist regimes. Just to give you a sense of the scale, it breaks it down to about 65 million in China and another 20 million in the Soviet Union alone. So, what's the deal with that staggering number? According to the source, this isn't just a tragic side effect or an unfortunate mistake. The core claim here is that this level of death is actually baked into the ideology itself. I mean, listen to this quote from the editor of that book. The argument being made is that this historical pattern of violence isn't a bug, it's a feature, a direct and necessary part of how the theory gets applied in the real world wherever it takes root. Okay, so with that global context set, the analysis really zooms in on the history of communism in India, and it frames this history as a series of what it calls historical blunders. Yeah, take a look at these four key moments that the source lays out. The central accusation is that time and again, the party's loyalty wasn't to India's national interest, but to an ideology dictated from abroad, from allegedly backing partition to siding with China in the 1962 war. And why would they do that? Well, the analysis digs into the very origins of the communist parties in India, claiming they were essentially founded with foreign inspiration, leadership, and, critically, foreign funding. This dependence, it argues, is the key to understanding their actions. And for proof of this, the source brings up something called the Mitrokhin Archive. These were supposedly secret KGB files that got smuggled out of Russia. They allegedly detail a massive network of Soviet funding and influence right here in India, stretching across politics and the media. But this whole thing goes way deeper than just politics. According to the source, the real strategy was a kind of cultural takeover. The argument is that this was never just about winning elections. No, it was a long game to seize control of the very institutions that shape how a country thinks and feels. And you can see the alleged scope of it right here. We're talking about universities, academic institutions, the media, the arts, even school textbooks. The claim is that this was a systematic effort to reshape the national conversation for generations to come. And this famous quote from Marx is used by the source to really drive that point home. It's not just about interpreting the world, right? The point is to change it. And these institutions, the source argues, were seen as the perfect tools for doing just that. So you might be thinking, with all this supposed deep-rooted cultural and political influence, they must have dominated at the polls, right? Well, the source material uses Telangana as a fascinating case study to look at exactly that, the ideology's decline. So what did happen to their vote share over the years? Let's check out the data. It's a pretty clear picture, isn't it? I mean, look at this. You go from being the main opposition in 1952 with about a quarter of the vote down to around 15% by the late 60s, and by 2004, their combined vote share had collapsed to just 3.5%. A pretty dramatic decline. But even with that political decline, the source argues that communism left a different kind of mark. One on the way people debated and talked about ideas. The idea here is that actual, evidence-based debate got swapped out for what the source calls a dictionary of abuses. Instead of arguing against your points with logic, the technique was just to label you with a dismissive term and move on. And the source claims this wasn't just random mudslinging. It was a deliberate political tactic traced all the way back to Lenin and Stalin, designed to shut down any real conversation before it could even start and just delegitimize the opposition. And this quote from Howard Fast, who was a former believer himself, really sums up the source's entire argument. Communism will be destroyed by truth. The idea being that when you strip away the slogans, the ideology itself just can't stand up to open, factual debate. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question that the entire analysis builds towards. When we judge an ideology, do we look at its grand promises on paper, or do we look at what actually happened when it was put into practice? The source material we've explored today makes a very clear case for the latter.